Chapter 861. Clear Calculation. Blood splattered out from Brother Wolf. Yi Shu had already experienced this attack before. Even though it couldn't be said that he had completely grasped the boss's attack patterns, he had figured out the most crucial points. As for a few other issues, their team was good enough to deal with them. The ones who had trouble, such as Chen Guo and Luo Ji, happened to be long-ranged classes who could attack from afar. As long as the situation was under control, as long as the two of them didn't cause too much trouble, they wouldn't encounter any problems. Next, they needed to calculate whether their current team could deal enough damage to finish the boss or not. According to general knowledge, during this period of time, the DPS would certainly be lacking. The team members needed to slowly accumulate new pieces of equipment and improve the strength of their characters before they could reduce the pressure. Right now, their team faced a 5-level suppression. In terms of DPS, it wasn't possible for them not to feel the pressure. For normal players, attempting to clear a level 75 10-player dungeon at level 70 was extremely difficult. Team Happy didn't consist of normal players though. In the first place, the skill level of their team members far surpassed that of normal players. No matter the game, DPS depended on equipment and players' skill. Glory was a game that paid particular attention to skill. The importance of a player's skill didn't need to be said. Under a skilled player's hands, the damage output naturally couldn't compare to a normal player's. Another point was that Team Happy's class composition could be considered extremely arrogant. Take Blue Brook Guild's dungeon team for example. Their team consisted of 2 main tanks, 3 healers, and only 5 DPS classes. Pioneering required caution, so Blue Brook Guild had brought 3 healers, but even when the dungeon became figured out, teams rarely brought a solo healer for a 10-player dungeon, unless in some extremely rare scenarios where the boss could be handled with just 1 healer. A vast majority of the time, 2 or more healers were required. But Happy. The main tank was Yi Shu's Lord Grim, who relied on damage output to keep the aggro on himself. He was a tank that wasn't actually a tank. In addition, the only healer was in Wenyi's little cold hands. To succeed with this recklessness, they had to rely on superior skill. By having the team members defend against the boss's attacks using their own abilities, the pressure on the healer would lessen significantly. Normal players wouldn't be able to do this. When they dodged around, let alone if it was even effective, they might crash into each other and mess up their positioning. But for Happy, their melee classes left each other plenty of room to attack and dodge. None of them held each other back. The tacit understanding between them gained from practice could be seen. Everyone underwent professional level practice every day. This practice wasn't just individual technical practice, but also team coordination practice. The only outlier was Mo Fan. This guy still didn't consider himself a part of Team Happy. Yi Shu and the others usually didn't call for him during their team practices, so at this moment, Mo Fan appeared to be offbeat. Everyone else acted as a whole, but he seemed to be an outsider. The switches between attack and defense were completely done by him. His pacing was his own. It seemed quite dissonant. Fortunately, his skill level was solid. Even though he wasn't in tune with the others, he wouldn't go so far as to cause trouble for them. Yi Shu had considered these problems earlier. When he formed the team to dungeon, he wasn't just here to sightsee. However, there was no information on the boss, so he needed to make an evaluation when the moment came. After observing their efforts for a while, he felt like there was hope. Our DPS is a bit lacking. Everyone pay attention to your pacing and timing, Yi Shu said. At this point, no one here was a noob, so these instructions were clear enough. In the past, Yi Shu needed to give Tang Ru or Steamed Bun a more detailed explanation by what he meant by pacing or timing. Now, he just needed to communicate the general concept and everyone would know intuitively. In particular, Yi Shu couldn't help but sigh emotionally at the eye-catching performance of Tang Ru and Steamed Bun. Under Yi Shu's guidance and ability to hold aggro, the ensuing battle went without mishap. Everyone understood that the situation had been stabilized. Next, they would need to carefully be on guard for when the boss's health dropped into the red. After red health, bosses would always undergo a transformation. It was a feature in Glory. The transformation didn't necessarily make the battle more intense. There were bosses that tried to run away when reaching red blood. For these types of bosses, if you ran farther away in preparation for the boss to go berserk, you would be the one to suffer. The other side's big move was to run away. If you hid, wouldn't it be the same as doing all that work for nothing? However, it was currently their first time running this dungeon. Keeping their life was the much more important. Even if they had to let Brother Wolf escape, it would still count as passing this checkpoint, allowing them to continue advancing through the dungeon. As a result, when Brother Wolf's health was almost at 10%, Yi Shu decisively ordered for all of the melee classes to temporarily withdraw. Pay attention to his health. Have a good understanding of your damage output. After seeing Soft Mist and the other melee classes retreat, Yi Shu reminded the long-ranged classes, who were still attacking. As long as your eyes don't go blurry, we'll be fine, Wei Chen said. Concealed light, have your summons pull back for now too, Yi Shu said. Luo Ji carried out the order and immediately retracted his 4 melee summons. Get ready to place an ice boundary. When the boss reaches red blood, cast it, Yi Shu instructed. Understood, Chao Yifan affirmed. Chasing Haze, stop attacking for now, Yi Shu calculated Brother Wolf's health. His Lord Grim needed to maintain his grasp over Brother Wolf's aggro, so he obviously couldn't retreat like Soft Mist and the others. As a result, he needed to escape as soon as Brother Wolf's health fell to 10%. Thus, once Brother Wolf's health reached a certain point, they needed to calculate the damage so he could grasp the escape timing. Old Wei, prepare a hexagram prison. Dawn Rifle, are your high-level skills off cooldown? Use Satellite Beam as the final hit, Yi Shu continued to arrange. Okay, Wu Chen's grasp of the rhythm had always been very good. He checked his skill bar. Satellite Beam was already up. Get ready. Everyone run far away and scatter. Don't group together. Get ready to use your life-saving skills at any moment. Little hands, take care of yourself before healing anyone else, Yi Shu gave his final words of instruction. Brother Wolf's health had already reached a crucial point. Everyone stop attacking. The battlefield instantly became empty. Only Brother Wolf was waving his spear, attacking Lord Grim. This guy had 3 weapons on him. Everyone initially thought that he was one of those shameless bosses with more than 3 classes. They had been prepared to guard against a sudden sword strike or a sudden gunshot. But none of that ever happened. That sword and gun just seemed to be ornaments on the boss. Dawn Rifle. After everyone stopped, Yi Shu shouted. Understood, Wu Chen was prepared, but because he had to coordinate with Lord Grim's escape, he needed to wait for Yi Shu's order. As soon as he heard the order, he immediately released the attack. In the sky, a mirror seemed to flash with light. The light grew bigger and bigger until a satellite beam descended on the ground precisely on Brother Wolf. Ice Boundary. Hexagram Prison. 1-inch Ash's ice boundary and windward formations control curse instantly appeared. Ice rose from the ground. Tiny pieces of shattered ice rushed towards Brother Wolf. Because of the level suppression, the damage and the effects were greatly reduced. In addition, bosses had outstanding resistance, so many skills became ineffective. However, there was still a little bit of leeway. If not, wouldn't bosses be impossible to kill? Vanguard Brother Wolf excelled at close combat. He had powerful attacks and outstanding defense, but his magic resistance was rather weak. Ice magic and control curses were the most effective. These 2 skills chained one after the other to give Lord Grim more time to escape. Yi Shu wouldn't be careless. The instant he yelled Dawn Rifle, Lord Grim jumped away using the shockwave from an anti-tank missile to fly farther away from Brother Wolf. Then, he turned around and used Shadow Clone technique. It still wasn't enough, so he rolled several times, while adjusting his camera so he could see Brother Wolf. What was that sound? Yi Shu wondered. When he ran, the instant that satellite beam descended, he seemed to have heard a clear sound. Was it from Brother Wolf's transformation? When he looked back, Brother Wolf was still Brother Wolf, but the spear in his hands had broken. The tip of the spear was pierced into the ground. That clear sound was probably when the spear snapped or when the tip fell. Those were the only 2 possibilities. Yi Shu was baffled by this weird move. Brother Wolf finally didn't disappoint. He grabbed the weapons that everyone had been regarding as ornaments. With a roar, Brother Wolf tore through the hexagram prison and trampled over the ice on the ground. He moved extremely quickly. His sword was pointed in Dawn Rifle's direction. When Yi Shu saw this scene, he had pretty much figured out Brother Wolf's enraged mode. Switching weapons was equivalent to switching classes. After falling to red blood, Brother Wolf's attack patterns would be completely different. Moving quickly meant that his stats had been buffed. This type of enraged mode was very common among bosses, especially small bosses, which like to have these simple enrages. He was pointing as Wu Chen's Dawn rifle because his aggro had been reset. The reset was there to give trouble to players, testing their ability to react to sudden changes. These 3 changes weren't anything new. Everyone saw these changes and let out a sigh of relief. How could an aggro reset be a problem for a team at their level? Wu Chen calmly jumped backwards and fired. As he attacked, he had Dawn rifle head towards Lord Grimm, so he could bring the boss back under Lord Grimm's control. Who would have thought that, at this moment, a sword would flash and an extremely quick sword slash would fly out. Dawn rifle's artillery shell exploded in midair. Blood splattered wildly from all over his body. Brother Wolf was behind him. Chapter 862. First kill. Downwind sword slash. It was only after Brother Wolf executed this attack did everyone regain their composure. They recognized this skill. It was the Blade Master's downwind sword slash. However, it wasn't possible for it to be this fast in the hands of a player. Dawn rifle had used aerial fire and his attention had been focused on Brother Wolf in front of him. However, when this attack came, Dawn rifle wasn't able to react at all because the attack was just too swift. The sword light rose and fell, leaving only a straight line. As soon as the artillery shell was chopped down, he was also cut. He was injured, but he didn't die. And when Yi immediately had his little cold hands cast a heal. He reacted quickly, but his hands couldn't keep up. In the end, Yishu's Lord Grimm was the first to heal Dawn rifle. And at the same time, Lord Grimm immediately rushed forward. Brother Wolf wasn't finished with just one attack. He turned again to give Dawn rifle another cut. Lord Grimm didn't have an aggro skill like Provoke, which made things a lot more difficult at dire moments. He could only use control skills to bring Brother Wolf away, so Dawn rifle could escape. Unexpectedly, before Lord Grimm rushed forward, someone else was even faster. Tang Ru. With a dragon breaks the ranks, Soft Mist charged at Brother Wolf like lightning. Although her speed couldn't compare to Brother Wolf's downwind sword slash, it was very prompt. When Brother Wolf's sword fell, Soft Mist had already arrived. The fairly intelligent boss made a calculation. He turned around and blocked Soft Mist's spear with his sword. Dragon breaks the ranks had an extremely high priority, but a boss was still a boss. That simple slash was able to block Soft Mist's spear. Grinding sounds could be heard from the collision between the sword and spear. The spear may have been blocked, but the momentum from Dragon breaks the ranks hadn't stopped. Brother Wolf's feet didn't move, but he was still pushed back by the assault. His 2 feet left 2 deep grooves in the ground. Clouds of dust billowed. Dragon breaks the ranks was finally stopped. Both Soft Mist and Brother Wolf stood still. Suddenly, a person flew out from the clouds of dust directly towards Brother Wolf's neck with a glint of light. Underground tunneling technique. This person was Deception, of course. However, NPCs could not feel fear or surprise. A normal player would have certainly had trouble defending against such a sudden attack, but for a boss, it was no different from an attack from his feet. Brother Wolf retracted his sword and blocked Deception's ninja blade. Then, he pushed outwards and sent Deception flying backwards. Mo Fan refused to give up. Deception used a shadow clone technique in the air. His clones continued to fly outwards, while his real body moved to Brother Wolf's side. The effects of shadow clone technique towards NPCs were different. Players could deduce the real one depending on the circumstances, but NPCs were different. NPCs that could distinguish between the clones were extremely special. Brother Wolf clearly didn't have this capability. He was tricked by the shadow clone technique and ignored the real one behind him, which resulted in him eating Deception's bird fall. But for a boss, even if he was already at red blood, eating 1 or 2 skills didn't matter too much. After taking damage, Brother Wolf turned around and slashed. Mo Fan reacted quickly. As soon as he saw that the situation wasn't looking good, he immediately withdrew. Deception didn't continue attacking and retreated instead. During this time, Yishu's Lord Grimm had arrived. The myriad manifestations umbrella transformed into a spear and attacked 3 times followed by a circle swing, throwing Brother Wolf to the ground. Wu Chen's Dawn rifle was finally out of the danger zone. He still felt some lingering fear after recalling what had just happened. That attack had been too fast. Even if he had been on guard against that attack, Wu Chen didn't have the confidence that he would have been able to dodge it. Now, who knew if Brother Wolf would use that skill again? Yi Shu hastily asked Wu Chen how much damage he had taken from that attack and then rearranged their formation. Those with the possibility of being instantly killed were placed outside of this attack's range. As for those inside range, the cleric would need to keep their health up. As expected, after fighting for a bit, Brother Wolf once again used the same move. His sword light flashed in a straight line and blood blossomed from Steamed Bun Invasion. This time, Steamed Bun Invasion took the attack. Steamed Bun also wasn't able to dodge it, and from the looks of it, the target for this skill was random. It wasn't according to who held the aggro. But now that the team was prepared for it, they didn't panic. Little Cold Hands cast an emergency heal onto Steamed Bun Invasion. The others rushed forward to protect him, blocking Brother Wolf's attack. They had now experienced that vanguard Brother Wolf had to offer. Apart from a bit of trouble from this extraordinary downwind sword slash, this boss battle progressed without any suspense. 10% health was quickly reduced almost to 0. He's almost dead. Everyone pay attention to surviving. Heal everyone to full health. Little hands, focus, Yi Shu said solemnly. There were bosses which liked to explode in their final moments. If they were going to die, they would bring others with them. These bosses were especially disgusting, particularly in a dungeon because it directly affected a player's progress. Understood, and when Yi replied. He carefully healed everyone's health back to full and prepared to use emergency heal at any moment. Okay, everyone retreat. Just like when the boss was about to reach red blood, everyone withdrew ahead of time, creating a buffer for when the boss fell. Yi Shu's Lord Grim faced it on his own, while Wu Chen's Dawn rifle prepared to make the last hit. Get ready, Yi Shu yelled. Wu Chen wound up his high-level skill. Release. As soon as the order came, a final satellite beam descended. Lord Grim hastily ran back. Everything was the same as before. Brother Wolf's health fell rapidly from this satellite beam, but when his health fell to 1 hit point, it stopped. It was unlikely for satellite beam to be a tad bit off. Everyone instantly understood the implications. Everyone, find cover. He's about to make a move, Yi Shu shouted. Everyone found a rock or a tree to hide behind. They had been on guard, so they were naturally prepared. Everyone instantly found cover. It only seemed dangerous for Lord Grim, who was still the closest among them. However, Yi Shu was the most experienced and skilled among them. On the verge of collapse, Brother Wolf dropped his sword to the ground and pulled out the gun on his waist. Sure enough, everything on Brother Wolf had their uses. Was he going to use this gun for his final attack? What would the attack be like? Because they had no information on it, Yi Shu chose to use this kind of defensive strategy. If not, he would need to figure out how to shrug off the boss's final move. Everyone watched Brother Wolf attentively. He didn't seem to have intentions of chasing after anyone, letting them relax a bit. Then, they saw Brother Wolf struggle to raise the gun high into the air with his right hand, and with a bang, a bright signal flare shot into the sky. The signal flare exploded into fireworks and Brother Wolf fell. Before anyone could comment on it, a system announcement came. Congratulations to Guild Happy for the first kill on Sealed Mountain Thief Hideout's Vanguard Brother Wolf. The system announcement wasn't given to just the people in Team Happy. From the astonished expressions that popped up all over the global chat, they could tell that this announcement had been made in the global chat. For a level 75 dungeon, announcements wouldn't only be made for just the first clear. A system announcement would also be made for every boss, including mini-bosses. According to Glory's rules, extra rewards would be given out for this achievement. But players didn't even have time to be envious of what these rewards were. It was only 1:21 a.m. Only an hour had passed since the update. Because there were so many players, people were having trouble receiving quests and even hitting a new monster, yet someone had actually complete a first kill? This had to be the fastest first kill in Glory history, right? In the past, the entire dungeon needed to be cleared before a system announcement would be made, while this time it was just for killing a boss. Even so, no player thought that this had ever happened before. Even for the elite club guild teams, they had entered the dungeon, but all of them carried with them a mentality of feeling out the dungeon and cherishing the cooldown for each run. No one actually thought that anyone could get through the dungeon or even kill a boss. But now, such a bloody thing had happened in front of their eyes. A team had actually killed the first boss in one of the 10-player dungeons already. An achievement that they had never imagined had been completed in front of them. All of the club guilds felt their faces drain of color. The first clears and dungeon records had always been theirs. Normal players would never even think about touching them, but now, they had yet to even get a good grasp of the dungeon, when a first kill had been achieved. And it just so happened that Guild Happy had sent out a recruiting notice, which matched the timing of this system announcement, attracting many eyes. The club guilds were so angry that their noses were askew. If it was another team, then it was fine, but who didn't know about Happy's situation? Happy had Yi Chu and was currently participating in the Challenger League, daring to face against Excellent Era. They had to be at a pro level, no? Pro level players running to dungeon? Wasn't that just bullying them? Their pro players were disciplined and didn't stay online overnight to play the game. If not, did you think that if these dungeons could be beat by your team, then these dungeons would trouble top teams like Blue Rain, Tiny Herb, Tyranny? The club guilds were furious. They could do it too, but they had no way of doing so. And these guys did it without knowing their places and were actually using it to advertise themselves. It was just too improper. The club guilds cursed silently, but they had no way of stopping players from discussing the matter fervently. The club guilds saw it as an improper first kill, but the players regarded it as the most stunning first kill in all of Glory history. The club guilds wanted to write all sorts of slander in order to vent their anger. God, can you just deal with the Challenger League? Can you not keep running to the game and messing up the balance of things? Chapter 863. DPS Chart. The club guild leaders assembled once more, but this time, they could only vent their frustrations. They had no way of solving the problem. Happy's team was in the dungeon. Apart from the system itself, who could stop them from conquering this dungeon? Within the first hour, the first boss had been killed. What about 2 hours later? 3, 4. If this continued on unhindered, tonight would become Happy's day of celebration. It was the busiest night of the year. Who knew how many people would remember Happy's name? Jealousy and envy. The guild leaders gnashed their teeth. According to the recent reports, as soon as the first kill record announcement and the recruit notice came out, Guild Happy, as well as their subordinates, Guild Everlasting, quickly reached the maximum guild member application limit. To some players, the attractiveness of the first kill could be considered as even more tempting than a beautiful performance by a team. When a team performed well, players would at most be delighted in spirit, but when a guild claimed a first kill, apart from pride, it also proved their guild's superior strength. Being inside this kind of guild might provide opportunities for them to surpass other players. Even if they couldn't squeeze into that level of a team, if that superior team obtained equipment from a dungeon and didn't need it, it would be placed in the guild storage. It would take time for normal players to have the opportunity to challenge 10-player dungeons. They needed to level and find level 75 equipment from 5-player dungeons. But with these conditions, they could directly get 10-player dungeon equipment from the guild storage. The temptation was enormous for numerous players. The main leaders of Happy were still in the dungeon. The recruit notice had been announced, but the work needed for accepting applicants wouldn't immediately begin. A system announcement after killing just the first boss also surprised them at first. Afterwards, they remembered to check the boss's corpse for the loot that he dropped. Compared to a 5-player dungeon, the equipment quality in raids would always be better. Even for purple and blue equipment, the stats of raid equipment were more outstanding. In addition, 5-player dungeons had a higher blue equipment drop rate, while raids had a much higher purple equipment drop rate. As the number of participating players increased, if the equipment drop rate was too low, many wouldn't get anything. As a result, the overall equipment drop rate in raids was far higher than in 5-player dungeons. In 10-player dungeons, it was normal for a boss to drop 2 pieces of equipment. In 20-player dungeons, every boss was guaranteed to drop at least 3 pieces of equipment. It was even possible to get 4 with enough luck. In 50-player dungeons, every boss could drop between 6 and 8 pieces of equipment. In 100-player dungeons, if every boss didn't drop 12 to 16 pieces of equipment, how could a 100-player dungeons be worth the effort? Sealed Mountain Thief Hideout was a 10-player dungeon. The probability of a boss dropping 2 pieces of equipment was quite high. After reflecting on the first kill announcement, everyone realizing that they could check the loot that dropped, which was undoubtedly very fun to do. Chen Guo was already asking impatiently, who's going? By her tone of voice, she was clearly waiting for someone to say, you can go. She prepared to immediately go forward and check. But Yi Shu wasn't in a hurry. He suddenly posted a chart in the team chat. Everyone took a look. It was the DPS chart for this section. In the past, these statistics could only be checked after clearing the dungeon. However, it seemed like level 75 dungeons had made some changes to the base of the game itself. Not only was there a first kill record for just the first boss, it seemed like the DPS chart could be checked at any time. The DPS chart can be checked in between stages. Yi Shu immediately brought up the topic. It couldn't be checked at any time, but in stages after a boss was killed. Everyone, take a look, Yi Shu said. Usually, I would tell everyone to learn from whoever's first, but today, I don't need to say anything further. In first place, it was obviously Yi Shu's Lord Grimm. He relied on DPS to establish aggro, so how could his DPS not be the highest? Lord Grimm's current level 55 Myriad Manifestations umbrella was equivalent to a level 60 orange weapon. The stats were 10 levels lower than everyone else's weapon. Unspecialized didn't have any single hit high damage skills. Under this condition, Lord Grimm still being number 1 was simply a display of his skill. After Yi Shu, number 2 was Wu Chen's Dawn Rifle and then Wei Chen's Windward Formation. In terms of equipment, Wei Chen's Windward Formation was number 1. He had a level 70 silver weapon and 3 pieces of silver equipment from Everlasting. In the Challenger League, he could be considered a cockroach. However, warlocks weren't high DPS classes to begin with, so in the DPS charts, he couldn't compare to a pure DPS class like Dawn Rifle's launcher. Soft Mist and Steam Bun Invasion followed next. There was a fair gap in the DPS of these two compared to the 3 in front. Because of the team composition, melee classes needed to dodge attacks in order to reduce the pressure on the healer, so they naturally couldn't focus purely on dealing damage like the long-ranged classes. Yi Shu could dodge while outputting damage, but Tang Ru and Steam Bun didn't have the skill. At 6th place was Chao Yifan's 1-inch Ash. He wasn't far behind Soft Mist and Steam Bun. For a supportive Phantom Demon, that was quite impressive. These 3 were in the second group of the DPS chart. The players in the third group appeared as if they were leechers. Then again, Concealed Light and Chasing Haze were sandbagging in order to coordinate with the team. Yi Shu had instructed Luo Ji to only use 4 summons to deal damage. Under this command, no matter how skilled the player might be, his damage would definitely be limited. As for Chasing Haze, Chen Guo was scared of messing up the team's rhythm, so she often took the initiative to sandbag, so her performance was naturally subpar. The most surprising was Mo Fan's Deception. This guy's skill was solid. Deception's equipment wasn't bad either, but he was actually in the third group along with the sandbaggers Concealed Light and Chasing Haze. Everyone stuck their heads out and looked at him. They wanted to see what kind of expression this usually cold and indifferent guy had. Especially after Yi Shu said in a serious tone, ahem. For those with a low DPS and without any particular reason, try harder. These words were obviously directed at Mo Fan because Luo Ji and Chen Guo had particular reasons, but for Mo Fan's Deception, with his skill and eagerness, it was quite surprising to see such depressing damage output. Everyone looked at Mo Fan. Sure enough, Mo Fan's expression was especially gloomy, but he still didn't say anything. His 2 eyes were filled with confusion though. He wasn't sure why his DPS was so low. Mo Fan was the only person sitting alone. No one could see what he was doing. After Yi Shu said these words, he didn't expand on it and asked, who wants to check the loot? Me. Chen Guo eagerly jumped up. Chasing Haze ran over. She quietly prayed to herself, even though she didn't really know what equipment this dungeon dropped. 2 pieces. Chasing Haze crouched and searched the body. Chen Guo could already see what the equipment was and first reported the number. 1 purple, 1 blue, then, she reported their quality. Even though it was a raid, it still wouldn't be easy to get orange equipment to drop. What are they? Everyone was already getting impatient and started asking questions one after the other. Not good. Chen Guo could see what had been dropped and said gloomily. Then, she posted the stats of the 2 pieces of equipment in chat for everyone to see. The pieces of equipment were obviously level 75. Getting a purple one was already quite lucky. Chen Guo said not good because none of these pieces of equipment suited any of the classes on their team. It's no big deal. We can just throw it in the guild storage. Yi Shu didn't care. Their team all had a set of orange equipment. Level 75 was a higher level, but the color mattered. Level 75 purple equipment was at the same level as level 70 orange equipment. So for level 75 equipment, they needed orange ones for them to be upgrades. For purple equipment, it would depend on the stats. As for blue equipment, there was no need to look at it at all. To normal players, blue equipment just passed the minimum standard. For competitive teams, it was definitely too lacking. Okay, let's continue. Everyone, work hard at dealing more damage, Yi Shu announced loudly. Everyone heard his words. Wasn't he still pointing at Mo Fan? After all, apart from him, everyone else had performed quite well. Chen Guo and Luo Ji had certain restrictions, yet they were still on the same level as Mo Fan's deception. As a result, everyone couldn't help but glance at Mo Fan again. This quiet guy looked very determined now, as if he were holding back a burst of energy. The 10 players advanced deeper towards Sealed Mountain Thief hideout. Before the second checkpoint, more sealed mountain thieves that hadn't been seen before appeared, but with the team's skill level, they quickly figured it out and passed through it. The more they got used to these monsters, the easier it became. Only Wenyi was nervous. He had never healed an MT like Lord Grimm before. This guy kept dodging around. He did evade large amounts of damage, but the problem was that even so, Wenyi had to watch him attentively. What if he suddenly made a mistake? The path to the second checkpoint progressed faster than the path to the first checkpoint. Around 30 minutes later, the group reached the second boss. Defense Commander Sand Leopard. This boss was once again unfamiliar, so the team employed the same strategy as before. Yi Shu's Lord Grimm went forward to probe it out. After everyone observed the boss's patterns, they would immediately swarm it. Mo Fan's deception was positioned towards the front of the pack. Compared to before, he was a lot more active. He clearly wanted to use the second checkpoint to prove his worth. In the path towards here, he had been especially diligent, but everyone knew that in dungeons, the hardest part was the boss. The stats for DPS mainly came from the boss. The damage dealt to small monsters wasn't much. It wasn't possible to deal enough damage to small monsters to become part of the team's main force. Even though Mo Fan operated alone, it wasn't like he had never dungeoned before. There was no way he didn't understand this reasoning. Chapter 864. Defense Commander Sand Leopard. The second boss, Defense Commander Sand Leopard, didn't have 3 different weapons hanging on him to make players worried like Brother Wolf. Sand Leopard held a sword in one hand and a shield in the other, a typical set of equipment for a knight. This class was one of the most annoying NPCs for players to deal with. For one, knights were very tanky, and their spirit wasn't shabby either, giving them a well-rounded defense. For another, a knight's aggro-pulling skills, like Provoke and Roar, was an immense disturbance on the field. Uncontrolled attacks and movements while working in a team could easily cause the situation to slip from their grasp. In addition, bosses often had more than one class, and the healer classes Cleric and Paladin were both under the same class type as knights. If the boss had healing skills, that would be even more devastating for players. It was especially so under the current circumstances. It was already very difficult since it was a new dungeon and they were coming in with very little knowledge and a large gap in levels. This kind of boss put a lot more pressure on their DPS. After having Lord Grimm go up to try the boss out, it was evident that this Sand Leopard was definitely a knight class. Lord Grimm's attacks seemed to do nothing, especially when that shield was used to defend. We'll have to take this one slow, though it might be hard to deal with. With Yi Shu's skill, he easily found a solution. Compared to the last one, we'll have to carefully note the quality and efficiency of our DPS, we can't let our guard down for a second. 1-inch Ash has a large responsibility this time. Stat boosts should be precise to get the maximum effect, try to not waste even a moment, Yi Shu began to order. Understood, Chao Yifan agreed. Soft Mist and Steam Bun Invasion should take care to cooperate with the support from the Ghost Boundaries. Chasing Haze has to be more open with her attacks. As for Concealed Light, summon some creatures with powerful offensive capabilities, but considering efficiency and mana consumption, limit your summons to 5 or less. Otherwise, it might cause unnecessary waste. Don't worry, we're going slow. Efficiency is key. We must be efficient, Yi Shu emphasized in the end. What if he has healing skills? We would need rapid DPS to suppress that. If the pace is too slow, we might not be able to hold on, Wei Chen asked. Let's see if we can interrupt them first. If we can't, then we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Yi Shu had obviously not missed that point, but only just estimated a possibility. If there was a possibility, then they should prioritize interrupting his heals. You'll do the interrupting? Wei Chen asked. I'll do it. Yi Shu accepted the responsibility. Soon enough, the battle officially began. When Yi Shu was testing the boss out with Lord Grimm, Sand Leopard had only revealed his immense defensive capabilities. As for aggro and healing skills, they never appeared so far, probably because it was just a one-on-one and there was no reason to use them. Now that everyone had joined in, the situation might change. Aggro skills could only be dealt with via a character's spirit or a counter skill. This sort of skill wasn't something that Team Happy's current lineup possessed, so there wasn't much to say. If he really used an aggro skill, then they'd deal with it once they figured out who the victim was. In the end, the situation was better than Yi Shu had dared imagine. Aggro skills never appeared, and heals did, though they could be interrupted. With Yi Shu's skill, Sand Leopard's heals might as well have been non-existent. The biggest problem Yi Shu ran into was steadying the aggro through DPS while attacking from the front, where Sand Leopard held his shield. This sort of DPS method of pulling aggro would put great pressure on him if the boss ulted. Since they didn't have any aggro skills, they would have to create another OT if he wanted to force the aggro back onto himself. However, OT situations had requirements. It wasn't as if an OT would follow immediately once one character had pulled more aggro than another. If that actually happened, then all they had to do was use similar DPS to control the aggro and then just seesaw. If two ranged characters attacked one after another with this sort of pace, then they would be able to get the boss to just run around aimlessly between them. So under normal circumstances, to cause an OT, one needed to pull a certain % more aggro than the current target. If you wanted to use an OT to negate an OT, you would need quite a while to accomplish it, even if the OT target stopped attacking. Yi Shu's caution was because he didn't want something like that to occur, otherwise who knows what would happen during the chaos. Everyone took their own role seriously, attacking according to the instructions Yi Shu had given. Yi Shu controlled the situation very well, too, holding the boss's aggro steady. Seeing the boss's health fall and everyone's mana consumption, Yi Shu was a little apprehensive. It seemed that it might be a bit of a stretch. Keep an eye on your pace of mana potion usage, Yi Shu said. Unlike the arena, the best thing about dungeons was that item usage was only limited by their cooldowns. With a good rhythm, potions could give an immense boost to their endurance in battle. Knowing that they were going into an all-new dungeon levels above them, Yi Shu and Co had naturally prepared well for it, stocking up on potions for everyone. Now, chugging them down without hesitation wasn't an option, they had to watch the efficiency of their potion usage as well. Time slipped by and Sand Leopard's health was also slipping away. This sort of endurance match was a test of the player's stability and focus. After everyone had focused calmly and efficiently dealt damage for almost 40 minutes, Sand Leopard's health finally approached 10%. As always, temporarily scatter, everyone. Dawn Rifle is going to be responsible for the last hit again. Facing an equally unknown enraged state, they would naturally have to use the same tactics. Seeing Sand Leopard's health about to hit red, everyone retreated. As Wu Chen's Dawn Rifle landed the last hit, Yi Shu's Lord Grimm had to swiftly retreat as well. It was the satellite beam just as it was before. Sand Leopard raised his shield to block, but this defensive move had already been considered. Even with the shield reducing its damage, the satellite beam would still deplete Sand Leopard's health to under 10%. Crack! The sound of something shattering rang out. The satellite beam had somehow managed to shatter the shield after hitting it. Everyone watched on, dumbstruck, recalling how the first boss's spear had also shattered upon reaching red blood. Was this dungeon using signals like this to tell the players that the boss was about to enter an enraged state? What would Sand Leopard's enraged state be like? Everyone's eyes widened and saw Sand Leopard roaring. His now empty left hand gripped the hilt of his sword with his right hand. Red light flashed in his eyes as his body also glowed with red light, even his hair seemed to be lit up. Berserker, Wei Chen's experience wasn't just for show. He had already made a judgment upon seeing the pose. This state seemed akin to the activation of the berserker's passive skill, Blood Awakening, when a berserker's health was low and entered a berserk state. I want to test it out first. Yi Shu didn't rely solely on this estimation, playing safe once more. After Lord Grimm charged forward, what met him was a sand leopard whose speed and attack had been greatly boosted, as expected. With a few wild slashes, even Yi Shu had to hurriedly get Lord Grimm to roll around, becoming especially passive. Yi Shu was unfazed, continuing this for a while. Seeing that Sand Leopard really didn't have any other tricks up his sleeve, he immediately called for the others. It's a berserker. Don't hold back, everyone. Under this sort of circumstances, a berserker's offensive capabilities would be greatly improved, but their defensive capabilities would immensely suffer. This second boss had gone from one extreme to the other. At first, his defense was immense, but after reaching red blood, his offense had exploded. Though they never encountered anything like Season Wolf's last downwind sword slash, this second boss was much harder to beat than Season Wolf. However, since most of the problems were dealt with by Lord Grimm, the others weren't too hindered. If it was someone else who was the MT, Sand Leopard would be tough enough to make someone's heart stop. With the boss's defense greatly reduced, Sand Leopard's wild style didn't allow it to live very long. Under everyone's furious attacks, his health was quickly depleted. Careful, hold your attacks, Yi Shu hastily yelled. Everyone simultaneously stopped, but Mo Fan's deception didn't manage to, landing 2 skills on Sand Leopard and ending the battle. Seeing Sand Leopard's health empty, everyone let out a breath of relief. This boss luckily didn't have any dirty last resort moves. Even so, Mo Fan's mistake wasn't overlooked. No one really liked this guy in the first place, so when something like this happened, not many showed sympathy, only scorn. Mo Fan was clear about this as well. When everyone threw scornful looks his way, he didn't look back at them, but he could feel it. He lowered his head subconsciously and his expression became a little awkward. The system announcement rang out again, declaring that the second boss Defense Commander Sand Leopard had been defeated. The global chat exploded again and the heads of the big guilds gritted their teeth once more, cursing wildly, but helpless to change reality. Chen Guo took the initiative in going forward to collect the dropped equipment. Once again, it was a blue and a purple piece, but they were of classes they could use. However, after checking their stats, they didn't seem to be very worth it, compared to the orange equipment they already had anyways. Why is there never any orange equipment? Chen Guo lamented, clearly knowing that this equipment wouldn't help them increase their strength. We'll get an orange equipment soon enough, Yi Shu chuckled. It's not that easy, Chen Guo rolled her eyes. We got 2 first kills. For these types of rewards, orange equipment and rare materials aren't uncommon, Yi Shu said with a smile. Chen Guo immediately realized what he was saying. Wild boss rewards were a level above dungeon bosses, or even hidden bosses, but dungeon record rewards were on the same level as wild boss rewards. Now that each boss had a first kill record, the real rewards would come when they cleared the dungeon. Chen Guo was excited, but Yi Shu didn't linger on the thought any longer. He sent out the DPS chart again, calmly saying, let's have a look at the DPS chart for the second section. Chapter 865. Tactician Snow Eagle. The DPS chart could be viewed according to each specific sections. Usually when using this to estimate ability, it would be focused on the boss fights, and disregard the damage dealt to normal mobs. If the normal monsters in the section were rather difficult to deal with and required some level of teamwork, then they might pull it out for a look as well. The DPS chart Yi Shu had pulled up was in regards to the boss fight against Defense Commander Sand Leopard. On the chart, Wu Chen's Dawn Rifle held the lead with Tang Ru's Soft Mist following and then Steam Bun Invasion. Yi Shu's Lord Grimm, who had been pulling aggro with DPS, was, in the end, only ranked 4th on the chart. Under these circumstances, these 3 hadn't caused an OT, clearly because despite their high DPS, their aggro wasn't enough to cause an OT. As for Yi Shu, if he could raise his DPS he would. However, since this boss hid behind a shield for a majority of the battle, he had met some problems facing the boss head-on. Yet these problems didn't affect his aggro pulling at all, so he didn't tell the others to hold back. With the chart in open view now, Wu Chen felt a moment of worry. His DPS was almost at the point of causing an OT. He hadn't watched out for it and Yi Shu hadn't said anything either. Was it because he had carefully calculated that an OT wouldn't happen? This god's calculation and awareness was just too terrifying. Yi Shu didn't care about this and didn't say anything about it. After a glance, he said, "Ahem, what's this? Deception. Your DPS is even worse than last time." It was truly worse. This time, not counting the cleric Little Cold Hands, deception was ranked second to last, only above chasing haze by a little and somehow slightly worse than Luo Ji's concealed light. Everyone was clear on Luo Ji's skill. No matter how bad Mo Fan was, it shouldn't be this bad. With the chart out, everyone was shocked. Wei Chen, who was always willing to see the worst in Yi Shu, even sent Yi Shu a private message. "What did you do?" F***CK off, Yi Shu replied without hesitation. "That's not possible." The ever-silent Mo Fan actually yelled out with disbelief. "You can take a look for yourself." Yi Shu didn't elaborate. The DPS chart was something the game had built in and calculated by the system, so it wasn't like Yi Shu was the only one who could see it. Everyone opened the DPS chart and clicked on the section for the boss battle against Defense Commander Sand Leopard, seeing how it was exactly the same as the one Yi Shu sent. Deception was ranked second to last, not even above Concealed Light. Though the difference was minimal, he had been a league above Concealed Light and Chen Guo in the first boss battle, despite all three of them seeming to be relying on others to carry them. This time, he had taken notice to improve, yet he hadn't managed to improve at all, and had fallen to their level. No wonder he was so incredulous. However, this was the system's calculations and a harsh truth that they could only accept. "You can't continue like this, loner. You gotta find a way to improve," Yi Shu said with a hint of mockery. However, anyone with a brain could hear the hint given. Loner. Was this saying that Mo Fan's deception was unable to keep with the team? Thinking of this, an experienced veteran like Wei Chen immediately understood what was happening. The reason he hadn't noticed before was because he wasn't paying attention to something like that. Now hearing Yi Shu mention it, he immediately understood what had been happening. "So that's how it is." Wei Chen sent Yi Shu another private message. "That's indeed how it is," Yi Shu said, not bothering to clarify what they were saying. Mo Fan wasn't stupid. Hearing Yi Shu insult him with the word loner, he paused. Was that the reason? Was it because of this that no matter how hard he worked to deal damage, his output was still crap? "Let's continue." Yi Shu didn't say any more, not willing to waste any more time on him, and led them further into the hideout. They met nothing but normal monsters along the way and soon arrived at the third boss without much suspense. It was the sealed mountain thieves' hideout's tactician Snow Eagle. Snow Eagle's long cloak fluttered, his hands empty and not giving a hint at his class. However, looking at his attire, it seemed more likely that he was some sort of mage. Everyone knew the routine by now. They didn't need Yi Shu to order them, standing their characters to the side and waiting for Yi Shu's Lord Grim to go up and feel out the boss. Yi Shu, of course, did as expected. As soon as Lord Grim entered the aggro range of the boss, Snow Eagle immediately welcomed him warmly. He flicked his sleeve, not even showing his hands, and a star appeared in midair, shooting forth with a streak of light. A witch skill, officially known as Magic Ray, that would create a star when fired, causing players to nickname it Star Ray. A mage, just as expected. Yi Shu was already on guard when Lord Grim stepped into aggro range. Though the Magic Ray was fast, it didn't damage him. Lord Grim turned his body and the Magic Ray missed. Sprinting forwards, Lord Grim was already closing in on Snow Eagle. Yet, Snow Eagle's next actions were shocking. He flicked his sleeves again without exposing his hands, seeming to grab something from under his cloak, but then his feet left the ground, having perched on a broom. The broom sparkled, showing that this wasn't any ordinary broom, but a witch's most important tool. Leaving behind a trail of sparkles, the third boss Snow Eagle turned and left. "What the hell?" everyone gathered over, asking. "It's just as you see," Yi Shu said. "Are we still in combat?" Wei Chen asked. "We are. Something's fishy," Wei Chen commented. "Of course," Yi Shu responded. "What do we do? This is the most shameless thing about dungeons. They're bullying players by forcing them to walk into what they know to be an ambush so that they can clear the dungeon," Yi Shu said. "You go first, we'll provide support." Wei Chen was blunt with his words. Yi Shu agreed to this blunt suggestion and had Lord Grim chase after Snow Eagle. The other 9 kept their distance as they followed behind. Not long after, Snow Eagle appeared once more. The area around him was filled with forestry, an obviously good place for an ambush. The system was using the fact that players had to advance, making these schemes so rough and inelegant. Snow Eagle turned his head and, seeing Lord Grimm, flicked his sleeves once more, sending up magic fireworks. Hollering came from the forestry around him and a group of thieves ran out. Yishu hurriedly had Lord Grimm back away. He didn't want to fight all these thieves alone. As he used aerial gun to back away, he counted 10 thieves. A total of 10 sealed mountain thieves was more than any wave they had previously encountered. The class lineup was very reasonable as well. There were close-ranged and long-ranged units, a leader with a shield, and even a devout-looking cleric, cross in hand. A cleric being a thief. It sounded absurd, but it was just a class in the game, so no one argued over the logic. A healer was always an important part of a team, no matter if it was PvP or PvE. Even without Yishu issuing an order, the others had caught up immediately and set their sights on the cleric. For PvE, there was no need for Yishu to waste brainpower on thinking up battle tactics. What was more important was giving commands to improve the cooperation and teamwork between team members. Though they hadn't dealt with a wave of 10 monsters before, the skill of Happy's members was evident. Knowing their limitations, they wouldn't take it on if they didn't have the means to asterisk, so the team worked in harmony. Mofan's deception might have been an outlier to this, but he was a scavenger and staying safe in a chaotic battle was his forte, so no one had to worry about him. Soft Mist, go engage those 2 gunners. Steam Bun, keep those 2 swordsmen busy. Old Way, give us a death's door. Concealed Light, summon 2 summons and keep that ranged unit occupied. 1 in Jash, release an ice boundary. Launchers, suppress them all from afar. I'll go grab that cleric. Yishu organized rapidly, his Lord Grimm already wheeling around and striking back. Against a 10-monster team, pulling all the monsters alone was too tedious. So, Yishu decided to utilize their party's advantages to its fullest, that being that most of their members could take perfect care of themselves, so they didn't need a specific MT to pull all the aggro. Anyone who had the ability could act as an MT and pull a few monsters. As for his Lord Grimm, he would go directly after the cleric. After a few skills, the cleric monster was thrown out from the formation, exposed and isolated from support. In an instant, the cleric was quickly killed under everyone's focused fire. After that, the most troublesome one to deal with was the ranged sealed mountain thief. Yishu's Lord Grimm charged forward again, throwing the 2 ranged thieves back to his team. With these 2 gone, the other 7 didn't need to be killed in any particular order. Whichever was more convenient to fight was whichever they would land a few strikes on. After a while, the 10-monster team had been wiped out. Seeing this, Snow Eagle once again mounted his broom and flew off with another whoosh. They hurriedly chased after the boss and Yishu took a look at everyone's statuses, reminding everyone, keep an eye on your endurance, don't waste anything. No one knew what would happen next in this battle against the 3rd boss Snow Eagle. If the ambushes continued like this, then their consumption in this battle might even be worse than the battle against Sand Leopard. Do you think this has something to do with the signal the first boss sent out before he died? Wei Chen asked. Yeah, that's logical, but it might also just be a set event, Yishu said. What they meant by a set event was that the signal sent by the first boss before his death was protected by the system, and it wasn't something the players could stop to change the progression of the dungeon. This sort of event was there to make the dungeon fit in with the storyline. Every dungeon had something to do with the quests and storylines in the World of Glory, and not just a bunch of monsters that were there for you to kill. However, many players were willing to see it that way, not bothering to take note of the underlying plot. Yishu and Co were these kinds of players. The reason for their analysis wasn't because they had any interest in the plot, but because they wanted to know if the dungeon progression and layout could be changed by preventing that signal. Logically speaking, preventing the signal from firing would lower the difficulty of the dungeon.